Alright, we've got 3 things here. I think this one is Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night. Yeah. I couldn't remember the full name. And then we've got Nobody's Boy Remi and something else. Oh yes, welcome to Demon School Iruma-Kun, Season 3. I feel like I should watch this. It seems fun. Regions A and B. Focus camera. Yeah, English dub. Okay, so, and Japanese. From Misfits to A-list. So an underdog story as well. And I know the basic premise is that the titular Iruma-Kun is a human. I think something like he got sold or adopted or something by demons, and I don't know. It just sounds fun. Maybe y'all can tell me whether or not it is. I do read every comment because fortunately I get emailed by YouTube. I just don't have the energy to reply a lot. Okay, so it is down there. Oh, this is all Blu-ray, yeah. 1 through 6, 7 through 12, 13 through 18, and 19 through 21. I was expecting it to go up to 24, but you know, that works too. What if they were working on it while it was airing and they were expecting that too? Kind of funny. So, the notable thing about Nobody's Boy Remi is, ruined childhood. Is, there's some burn-on-demand DVDs that are kind of hard to get. And I think this is the last of those shows. What were they? Yeah. Super Dimensional Century Orgus and Cat's Eye. They were burn on demand only, but they finally got releases, and now we finally have this one, which is very nice, other than the fact that this plastic is not coming off. So, let's see. Audio. Japanese and French. English subtitles. Turbulence and Triumph. Good stuff. Oh. What the fucking hell is this? It's like 3D glasses, except... Does it actually say somewhere? Bonus feature, English promos. Produced in limited 3D, glasses included. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? Huh. Well, I didn't expect this. This is intriguing. So, episodes 40 to 50 plus bonus. Okay, so, and I'm guessing this is some sort of unique 3D thing, because like my TV still supports 3D, but you know, not this kind. The kind that uses polarization and synchronizes with the TV in order to. Oh man, I haven't fired up that 3D stuff in ages. And, you know, first and now last, but not least, Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night. I was going to say that this feels like the most anime of these anime, but I don't know. I guess the idea of pictures I would use for the ChatGPT, or what I would use to generate ChatGPT, it's like, you know, I do like cute girls doing cute things, even if I don't watch it a lot. The idea is at least it's plug a big up there. And I don't know if it's exactly that, but, you know, it's a group of girls, and The title doesn't give me an idea. How can you plan for what you're going to become someday if you're not even sure who you are right now? Sounds like it. English dub. Region A. Did I see a region on this one? I see something there that looks like an all region. Or a stack of blueberries. Come on, camera. Can you focus? Guess the camera's having trouble focusing. Let's take a look at the inside of this and not lose the disc. Neat character designs. They don't mean much to me, not having watched it, but I bet some people watched it and said, yeah, this was pretty fun, actually. Anyways, here's this week's physical anime collection update. Okay, let's see. With my Friday friend, we finished Solo Leveling Season 2. You know, he seemed to be pretty eager to get through it. Sorry, that came out of nowhere. I'm starting to take something for these burps. I don't remember if I was burping last time, but they are becoming problematic. They were really problematic last week. But for this, Solo Leveling Season 2, so that's episodes 22 through 25, which ends the season. And yeah, I can say I'm definitely looking forward to potentially seeing, Season 3, whenever that does come out. And I guess that kind of reminds me, looking at some of the stuff coming out this coming summer, there's a couple of notable things. Shield Hero Season 4. Not that I think Shield Hero as a series feels as relevant. Very kick-ass first season. Seasons 2 and 3 having their mix of stuff. But, we got that. We've got Kaiju number 8. Season 2. Good stuff. Things to look forward to. But for this, Solo Leveling, really enjoyed rewatching it. I mean, why not? I've gone back and rewatched a couple of the episodes anyways. Maybe not full episodes. I don't talk about too much about episodes that I just go back and rewatch a series. Like, there's some like my Isekai Fantasy Life, I think. Like, I mentioned how certain elements of it just didn't work for me, but I did feel like rewatching like one episode from there. And it was fun enough. But, I don't know. Solo Leveling, though, still getting a lot of enjoyment. It just had some really great, greatly choreographed fights. I'm not sure if I can say for certain that they had the right meaning, but anyways, it's all stuff. The beginning after the end, episode 7. Okay, stuff, I guess. It ended at a place where I guess we wanted to see what happens next. I'm not sure what to think about all of it. I guess we had that thing show up. I guess the problem is we kind of have a general direction of we want to see our main character go to become a better person, reflecting upon his past life and, all that good stuff. And that's sort of happening, but maybe in a way that isn't as impactful as it should be. Oh, I think I still enjoyed it and still looking forward to the next episode. Two Perfect Saint, episode 7. Really hard to say what to think about this show. I think it's good, but it's hard for me to really say why I feel like any aspect of it feels good per se. Like, they're building up, sort of, but at the same time, it almost feels like the build-up has nothing to do with our titular character to a certain degree, and that just makes it weird. But, I'm still finding it to be entertaining, enjoyable. Brilliant Healers, New Life in the Shadows, episode 7. So this initially, hopefully I'm keeping up on the episodes correctly, this initially looked like it was just a hot spring episode. There were two things about it that I kind of felt appreciative. Maybe you could say 3 things. It's like when it came to the actual hot spring content itself, I think some of it was amusing and predictable. But it is nice that our main character handled things the way he did, because he it's nice and refreshing to not have somebody that's somebody that's not a weak person. So he kind of has his own opinion. I'm not sure how much it makes sense with, you know, the previous stuff. You know, that's been one of those things that just feels weird. It's like they had to come back later and say, oh, actually it makes a lot of sense that he doesn't realize he's such an OP person. He did not know what that meant. But yeah, in this case, you know, good, assertive, fun. The other thing I actually found entertaining was the way they censored one of the naked girls. And I thought it was kind of clever, I guess. You know, it does basically end up being doll nudity to a certain extent. If you're not familiar with that, that's kind of referencing nudity that may be acceptable, I guess. As in, like, not seen as pornographic. It's like, you're supposed to know and get the general idea that they're naked, but, you know, they're not drawing the naughty bits. And I wouldn't say that's what they did here, but it's kind of effective in the same way. It's just really interesting. They do something clever with the lights that isn't Fog-kun coming in to keep the rating right. So, I don't know. It's weird stuff, but it was surprisingly more fun than I would have thought it was, given how horrible the first episode it had. But the other thing I thought that was nice about it was it did a better job of segueing into the next story beat, more so than I would have thought. I mean, to a certain degree there's coincidences, but the setup of the second half of the episode was actually kind of enjoyable. I think it could have been better because, you know, it kind of leaves me wanting to see the next episode for when the real meat of the stuff happens, I guess, potentially. But at the same time, it's hardly the only offender in that regard here. And I don't know that's necessarily feeling like it's paced badly, but it is interesting where it's just like, you did spend all this time on all this other stuff, and maybe you could have ... Oh well, interesting. Tagonia episode 6. Oh, that's right. So the thing I actually appreciated about this episode is kind of up to this point, it's introduced ideas, but it has mostly been, I guess, a kind of, how to put this? I guess it's introduced certain ideas, but it's like, I'm not sure if it's really doing anything with this per se. It just seems to be something that it played with, but now it's going on to just kind of the character sort of living a day-to-day life in his weird new double life sort of setup. Excuse me. But in this episode, it really did seem like it brought a lot of these elements together in a way that's more interesting. I'm not sure if it's thematically notable, but it's at least showing that these ideas it introduced weren't just simple ideas. It's actually doing something interesting with them. So, you know, I think a good halfway episode. Next up, Apothecary Diary, Season 2, Episode 41. Okay, yeah, a good catch-up from what happened at the end of the previous episode. And because I saw that Episode 43 hadn't come out, you know, I watched 41, 42 is the next one, and 43 didn't come out. I'm like, is it the season finale, core finale? But it looks like that maybe that episode was just delayed or something. Hard for me to tell, but I guess I'll be skipping an episode, or rather, I'll be missing out on an episode 1 week. Maybe not this coming week, but the week after. But hopefully it continues resuming, and it's interesting because the episode that's next for me, which would have been the episode that y'all who are watching it watched last time, is named after some something that's also being introduced in sort of the Demon Hunter episode 8 this week, today, where I'm recording this, of course. And that's just an interesting, the lantern plants. It's like, huh, well, interesting. It just came up in 2 places at roughly the same time when I've never heard of it before. But I think they have a name for that when you first hear about something, then you start hearing about it in a bunch of other places. But funny stuff. But I'm just trying to remember, I enjoyed the episode. Was there anything else I had to think about it? Hard to say. Anyways, Old Country Bumpkin to Master Swordsman, episode 7. I thought this was a very pleasant episode. It's not living up to the brilliant or the Master Swordsman part of it, but it is doing something with characters just like, okay, he's been surrounded by a harem who's been talking really great about him, and we understand he is pretty great, even if he doesn't realize it, but they haven't been doing anything with that. But what this did, it isn't part of that Master Swordsman stuff, but it is neat. And maybe I just say that as an old man myself. If any of y'all thought I was young for any reason, I'm not sure why. I mean, obviously I'm not organ dying levels of age, but I'm in my 40s and my facial hair has grown gray. I don't know, was it 5 years ago? Longer? The point is, there's an element of it that's just like, yeah. That's kind of the highlights of parenting. He didn't have to deal with her when she was diaper changing age, or terrible twos. And she turns. Anyways, that's all a bunch of stuff. It was neat, I'd say. I'm the Evil Lord of an Intergalactic Empire, episode 7. What all happened in this episode? That happened. That reminds me, that was a funny thing, because I think Evil Lord of Intergalactic Empire, the interdimensional character was called the Guide, and now in Brilliant Healer's New Life in the Shadows, an antagonist has been introduced who is also named the Guide. I don't remember if they said that in the last episode, but man, he gets around his anime. Anyways, I mentioned before that I was waiting to see certain story arcs come together, and I think they're coming together in this episode. I'm interested to see the next episode to see how they come to fruition. Overall, it's been enjoyable, I think. Strange, but enjoyable. Unaware Atelier Meister, episode 8. Bunch of interesting stuff happened in there. Okay. We did learn, I think, a little bit more about certain stuff and set stuff up for the next episode, so there's elements of it that kind of reminds me of how not to summon a demon lord or something like that. But I don't know if I can go into more detail than that. If y'all have watched both, maybe you're like, oh yeah, it does feel like they're setting something up like that, aren't they? But yeah, entertaining enough. Gorilla Gods Go to Girl, episode 7. This was the most average shoujo episode of this series yet. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does mean that this episode doesn't really play with its founding principle or premise at all. Instead, it is, I'd call it standard shoujo slop, but to be honest, I'm not sure if I can even really call it slop. I think it's actually pretty good. So when I say it's average, I mean it's the good kind of average, the kind of thing where you're just like, oh yeah, and they've set things up so that it's more like a harem anime, not with the main character having a favorite, but rather the main character having a chosen one, I guess. It's like, yeah, it's it's playing around with that, and the fact that it's doing that halfway through this season, or this core, or whatever, is interesting. And it is also interesting just to think about why I think it's okay for it to have done this, mostly because while the Gorilla God concept is really fascinating, it hasn't been really exercising it too strongly and making that really what it's about. It's been pretty obvious from the beginning that those are awesome moments, but they're not like overshadowing awesome moments, which I sort of feel like something like Seventh Time Loop maybe sort of suffers from a little bit, where this idea that when they introduce a good concept to hook you in and they do too good of a job, sometimes it's really hard to live up. Like, I felt the second half of Seventh Time Loop felt weaker, and maybe it's not even the last half, maybe it's the last quarter. And I think most of that is because we like her, she was awesome, and we want to see more about her, and excuse me, that last quarter is a little bit kind of more about her mentor more than her, which, you know, just makes it lose. And I think the reason it loses a lot of its punch there is just because it had such a spectacular beginning. I mean, first half of that show was awesome, but this one I think didn't set as high of a bar there, so I think that means we got a averages and good average episode here, and it's just like, yeah, if you like watching, you know, your shoujo stuff, I think she's a pretty good character, because I feel like she's way more convincing as a shy girl that nobody knew, that now a couple people have their eyes on her, and I think the sets up for those were actually good and utilized the fundamental premise of the show pretty well. Anyways, good stuff. Reincarnated as a neglected noble, episode 6. Okay, enough stuff. I think, you know, the thing that keeps making this enjoyable to watch isn't the, oh, he's just taking care of his little brother. Like I said, it's because it's building more of the world, I guess. I say the world, but I don't mean world building. I mean more like village building. And it's not as quick and sharp and awesome as something like Reincarnated as a Slime, but it is doing that. And so when our main character interacts with people in a way that's like, okay, that keeps being there, it's like, hey, that's pretty neat. That's pretty fun. So, you know, it continues to be a neat show in my opinion. Episode 6, continuing that trend. I'm just not sure if I have anything else to think about the other two things. And last but not least on the list is Sword of the Demon Hunter, episode 8. Which is interesting because this episode both had more action and more not quite action. It actually set itself up for quite a bit of action in the next episode. But we'll have to see what that is. But it's nice. I especially appreciate, like, this one scene in there, you know, a good amount of length to that scene, where I guess the main character is just talking with certain other people. It's like, man, these are some good playing people. It's like, if I showed a picture of it, somebody might think, are these almost all background characters? No, they're important characters that just keep recurring, and so it's like, man, I have trouble keeping track of them because they're even more nondescript than an Attack on Titan character, which is kind of funny to say, because when you go back and rewatch Attack on Titan, you suddenly realize certain characters that you kind of might have written off as background characters, like, they had a name, and the show gave them a name, and they gave them an important part of the plot, and I just had trouble following that the very first time I watched it. I think you get better after the first season. Either that or the first season doesn't do it to you as much. But it's an interesting thing. And this show, if it wasn't so relaxed paced as it was, I think it would be easier for me to not figure it out as it goes. But Attack on Titan has a very... it's paced well, but it's also a quick pace. As in, like, you know, it doesn't want to dwell too much on story moments that don't serve a purpose. And this one, it's serving a different purpose because it wants to create that kind of casual, relaxed atmosphere that makes you feel like
I guess, even though there's these radical elements to it, it almost feels radical, meaning like fantastical. I mean, it still feels a little more cut from reality than normal. All good things. Let's see. Anything else to talk about? 2v8 returned in Dead by Daylight. I haven't been playing it too much because my brother started up a Terraria server, and while I'm not starting from scratch and rebuilding everything because that took forever, I am still, just kind of doing stuff. It basically means that while all my brothers have started new characters, I'm the one not pushing progress forward, and I wouldn't. And my goal is to actually just find Terraria projects that I've just never done because I've never sat down to do one. For example, as soon as we created the world, the first thing I'm like, okay, I need to seal off the evil biomes because I already know if we get enough progress in the game, then they'll start spreading like crazy. And so to keep the world maintained, I'm looking to do that, basically. And next thing I'm looking at is actually, first I was actually looking to get a Defender Forge and how that mechanic works because I never tried that. And now I can make recommendations to my brothers to give it a shot because, we'll do it in the multiplayer server in certain ways. Anyways, but I've also never tried gem corn farming, and I want to try to do that. Seems like a good thing. Dig out a huge underground area to just start planting gem corn farm trees. Whatever. I'd say y'all know what I'm talking about, but the truth of the matter is maybe y'all don't, but that's okay. Anyways, nice stuff. Trying to think if there's anything else to talk about. Yeah, hopefully this won't be an issue next week, but I don't remember if I talked about feeling sick last week, and did culminate in a pretty bad episode last Thursday, which I will not go into details for. Nothing life-threatening, but the sort of thing that's like, God, I can't let that happen again. And of course today it feels like the body's setting itself up to fucking do that again. Yeah, not happy about that. Taking some drastic measures, a radical change to my diet, which isn't intended to be like a long-term change because I'm not going to give up some of these things, but the goal is to see if I can make it where I can stabilize my system a bit. And so, there's some probiotics and some anti-gas stuff, and I wish I could say that's growing old, and that may have been a part of it, but it's also the pain of just not taking care of yourself, I guess. Anyways, there we go. There's my yammering. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it, and y'all have a nice week.